Welcome to the Arrive U.S. Immigration Law Podcast with your hosts Jeremy Richards and Christine Jerusik. Join us as we navigate the complex world of U.S. immigration law with a special focus on opportunities and challenges for Canadians and Mexicans under the USMCA. Whether you're a professional, business owner, or family member seeking to work and live in the United States, we're here to guide you every step of the way. So sit back and relax. You have arrived.
Welcome back to another episode of the Arrive podcast. Today we are just going to be talking high level about everything that we're seeing to date with and how all of the changes that have happened over the past 9 months at this point have trickled down, and how have these changes impacted Canadians as they go through the immigration process. And that includes processing through the consulate in Montreal, processing at ports of entry and airports, as well as processing cases with U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, and how we've seen the changes with this administration and the impact on all of those processes. So we'll go ahead and start with where most Canadians have interactions, and I would say that's with airports and the border.
For visitors, right?
For visitors as well as TNs and Ls, so people that are applying for visas or to come in as a visitor to the United States. And this is a question we get all the time. You know, what should I expect at the border? What should I expect at the airport? How are they going to treat me? Should I be worried? And we've had this conversation multiple times over the past several months, but it's still very much at the front of the mind of people that are coming to the United States. And what does that climate look like? So
especially as we move into the colder weather and the snowbirds are thinking about making their trip to the United States as a visitor. And, you know, people are always making non-immigrant applications at the border, like you said, for Ls and TNs. So,
as well as the new visitor rule. Now we're seeing how they're implementing that. If you're staying over 30 days, what does that look like?
So we're just talking about border interactions in general. What do those look like?
And I would say in general, and this is coming from people that we talk to every day. We talk to Canadians multiple times a day.
And we actually have employees in our office that are entering every day to the United States from Canada who live in Canada. And they're seeing no change in their treatment at the border.
Nope.
So people who are traveling on non-immigrant visas, we're seeing no change in the treatment at the border and the way the border officers are adjudicating those.
And the border really doesn't care about that registration requirement. I'll say that too. They don't seem to care at all. Now,
I don't think they like answering questions about it either.
No, and they're not going to help you with it. No. So they're like, whatever, just come in. Right? Yeah, you look good. But so the registration requirement, the border really isn't doing any enforcement on it.
Well, they're not enforcing it, yeah. And so that's not up to them to enforce it.
No,
that's not
USCIS
That's not their rule, right?
Yep.
So they don't need to interact with that.
Not saying that you shouldn't meet it and comply with it. So we've discussed how you do that, and you can get an I-94 in advance of travel to the United States, or if you will be staying longer than U.S. and you're already here, then you can go through USCIS to register.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that in a past podcast.
Yeah, we did.
So if you need information on the registration requirement, I encourage you to go back in our library and take a look at that podcast, because the information that we put out then is actually still 100% accurate. Yeah.
So I would say that's not even anything really to worry about. It hasn't really impacted Canadians' ability to travel and work and live in the U.S. at all. So you shouldn't stress about that requirement. Definitely make sure you are aware of it and that you meet it. But it's not something that's going to impact your ability to travel to the United States. We haven't seen one Canadian with an issue in regards to that registration requirement. So I would say it's a non-issue. Just make sure that you are aware of it. And like Christine said, go back and listen to our old podcast where we go in depth on what that looks like so that you do understand it. But it's not something you should be concerned about. It's not something that should prevent you from traveling or working in the United States at all. I would say Just make sure you understand it. Other than that, don't worry about it. Don't sweat.
And I mean, and that's not to say that we haven't seen some weird changes in some border interactions for specific types of people. People in specific situations have encountered border officers that are, maybe take things a little more seriously than they have in the past.
Yes.
And so that's just a call to our Canadian travelers to just make sure that your documentation is up to date, your information is accurate, and you're interacting in a professional way with people.
And I would say that does bring up one area, one very specific section of people that should take care when they travel, right? And we have seen this. Not only have we had clients face issues with it, but we have heard that other individuals are facing it. And that's if you are traveling on a document that's called advance parole. So individuals that come to the U.S. and then they file for a green card, let's say based on marriage to a U.S. citizen, and then they fall out of status while they're waiting, and then they're only relying on
and by fall out of status, you mean their underlying
overstayed
status
visa
that they came to the United States with. So if
Yeah.
they came as a student and they had an F1 visa and their schooling has ended, and so they're no longer an F1
or
student.
a visitor and they overstayed the visitor visa, or a TN. Yes. And then now, and they're just waiting for the green card. So they're allowed to stay here while they're waiting for the green card, but they don't have an official status anymore in the U.S.
Right.
But then they get this document that's called advance parole that allows them theoretically to travel outside of the United States without abandoning that request for a green card and then to re-enter. CBP does not like that document, and they've made it very clear that if you're traveling on that document, you're going to face issues on re-entry. And they have always put you into secondary, always have, if you travel on that document. But it seems like those that are traveling on it currently face much more scrutiny, and border officers are exercising much more discretion on re-entry. So traveling while you're pending adjustment, our advice that we give is very conservative, and that is sit tight. It's not going to be much longer till you get your green card. Don't travel unless that's an absolute emergency, because you're putting yourself at the discretion of that border officer for re-entry. And we've seen people face issues with CBP re-entering on those advanced parole documents. So take caution. I mean, if you can, don't travel. And this goes into something else we're discussing too. We advise clients, if you come into the United States, you're adjusting status, and you fall into this category where you're going to fall out of status, you're going to end up, overstaying your visa while you're waiting for that green card. Our typical advice is you need to plan at least a year where you're not going to be able to travel outside of the country.
Right.
Plan ahead that's going to be the case, and you just sit tight until you get that green card, until you're certain that status has been approved and you have that absolute authorization to travel and to work before you do so. Otherwise, you're putting yourself at the discretion of a border officer who is more empowered now than ever to make decisions on the spot about your ability to re-enter the United States.
Right.
So,
and they've been asking, why did you leave? What was your reason for travel? And when people say, oh, I just went to visit my mom, they'll say, well, that doesn't sound like a very compelling reason for you to leave the United States.
Yeah,
that's not an emergency. What are you talking about? Why would you have left the United States? And they get very perturbed by the fact that you would, temporarily possibly abandon your green card and put your green
want to see
card
your mom
at risk just because you wanted to see your mom. That advanced parole isn't provided for that reason. You need to use it for emergency reasons, humanitarian reasons, urgent, compelling reasons to leave the country. So be careful. If you have an advanced parole document, if you're waiting for your green card, our advice would be sit tight unless you do have, that would be an exception. If you have an emergency situation, if somebody's ill and they need your care, then if you leave, there's a good chance that when you come back in and you explain that to the officer, if they ask, that you would be readmitted, because that's a reason why you can use advanced parole.
Yes. Good point. And I had a client recently who's waiting for a green card, and they needed proof so they could travel. And they went to USCIS to obtain proof through what's called an I-551 stamp, which is proof of your status as a green card holder in the United States.
So they were already approved for their
They were
green
already
card.
approved, but they needed that to travel because their green card is expired, right? But they're waiting for their new permanent green card. And USCIS straight up told him, or his purpose to go to Canada, he has 2 weddings, for a friend and for a family member. And they said, that's not an urgent reason. We're not expediting this for you. And frankly, it's not a humanitarian reason to travel. We don't consider a wedding a valid
compelling
reason. So the purpose for travel does carry into it. So sit tight is best advice, unless it's absolute emergency, and you can prove it too. You need to be able to prove the reason you're traveling. And if you can do that, then we don't tend to see issues.
Yeah, and this is a bit of a change. I mean, previously in past administrations, we haven't seen CBP be quite so scrutinized, like high scrutiny with advanced parole travelers. They've generally been admitted in most cases to the United States.
Yeah, they'll ask you a few extra questions and let you in.
And you'll go into secondary, answer a few questions, but if you had the proper paperwork, they would admit you. That's not the case anymore.
Yep. So, yeah, take caution if you're using that. And then as far as adjudications in general, for TN or L1 visas, those are the ones where you can show up at the port of entry as a Canadian and you can request entry to work in the U.S. on either that TN visa or the L1 visa. We haven't seen any issues, at least with my clients. It's been business as usual. As long as you have the proper documentation and you fit into the category that you're applying under and everything's in order, it's been pretty seamless. And actually relatively quick, every port of entry. There are some ports of entry that are definitely more difficult, but they always have been.
Mm-hmm. So no change there.
No change there. Detroit area, Toronto area, you're going to
have a higher level of scrutiny.
Hold
and
on
you just
for the
need
ride.
To make sure, just make sure that you have a lot of extra time and you have impeccable paperwork.
Exactly. So as long as you have all of that TN documentation, L1 documentation in order to prove your qualifications, we're seeing business as usual for those business travelers as well. So the climate with the TN adjudications and everything, I would say is tolerable. There's no extra caution that I would give to anybody other than what we always have told people. Make sure you qualify. Make sure your docs are in order.
Yeah.
Make sure,
Yep. So if you're looking to work in the United States and you have a TN opportunity, a U.S. employer that's willing to sponsor you, this is just as good a time as any to apply for that TN and start your career here in the United States. I wouldn't necessarily hold off on that for the time being unless you have a personal reason to do it. There certainly isn't a border or
there's no immigration reason not to do it.
Yeah.
And the same applies to those that want to do business here. If you're expanding your business, we have businesses getting those L1 new business visas on a regular basis and have had zero issues with them expanding their businesses and getting those L1 visas too. So if you plan on doing business here and expanding, there's really no cause for concern right now.
What about E2s, consular interaction? I know we're talking about the border today.
Really, E2s, there was a little bit of us figuring out, because they have a change of guard every so often in Toronto.
Yeah.
But we figured out what this new, what do you call it over there at the consulate, the new administration at the consulate, I guess, expects. And since we haven't had any issues, and they have reduced the amount of pages you can submit, and we have to be more stingy in what we're giving them. So it has made our job a little bit more difficult in preparing those, but the outcomes we've seen are positive. What we have seen though is it has slowed down significantly the adjudication process for an e-visa. So you need to plan much more time.
I think they're being scrutinized more highly.
They are,
in my experience. I'm seeing them question things.
We also scrutinize our stuff to that level.
We certainly do, but even to the point where people And this hasn't come back to us, and our preparation of documents are on our side. But if you're thinking of an E2 and you have something in your history, a criminal conviction, even if it's minor, or you have
Very
some
good
kind
point.
of
Very
odd
good point.
travel history with the United States or with other countries that the United States isn't friendly with, this could impact your ability to get your E2 approved. So you could do everything exactly right for the E2 application, and your applicant has something in their history that's keeping the consulate from being able to approve them in some kind of security measure.
Excellent point. So as far as the e-visa criteria and your investment or your trade, we're seeing that, same criteria as before.
Sure.
But what you're saying is a very good point. We're seeing people refuse for other reasons outside of their investment.
Right.
Such as that criminal. Yes.
Criminal backgrounds, security
definitely
backgrounds, immigrant intention
Yes.
demonstrated by a travel history, things like that.
Social media, whatever it is, be careful because they are going to dig into your history
Yeah, they're
more
not
than
just
ever.
they're just not just looking at the business side of things. They're actually looking at you and who you are, and if they don't like it, watch out.
Yep. We've had a few where even people extending an E or you continuing on that E and getting trying to
A
get
new
a new
registration.
registration
Yeah.
who were denied, but they weren't denied because of the investment. We've had a few that were denied for criminal reasons or otherwise
that came to light-
outside of that.
That came to light in the new
to the light, yeah.
review that did not come to light in the first review. So we're thinking there's more of a security side of E2 review now that wasn't there before.
And that applies that applies to any consular level application. So not just an E, but also if you're getting an immigrant visa, if you're getting a visitor visa that and Canadians are exempt from that. But in general, if you have to go through the consulate, the level of scrutiny and backgrounds has increased significantly.
Yeah, in our experience, for sure.
And then that goes over, and we'll go over since we're on the consular level. So e-visa, if you're doing that, feel free. Invest, do business in the U.S. If you're doing trade,
It's still a great pathway.
excellent. But
I
make sure you're
advise
disclosing
it to
the
so many
stuff
people.
in
Right.
your history because it will have an impact.
Tell your lawyer so they know up front that it can be addressed and it's not a surprise that comes up at the interview.
Yep. And you can
Or
be advised
after the interview,
or
even
you can be
worse.
advised that you shouldn't be applying for an E because your chance of approval is very low.
Yeah.
So, immigrant visas, which also go through the consulate, and immigrant visas is somebody coming to get a green card through family sponsorship or even employment sponsorship. Those are taking extended periods of time too. Those are slow. Everything at the consular level, they seem like they've slowed down.
For Canada, for sure.
Yeah, especially employment based. So if
Oh,
you're getting a
that's-
green card through employer, I talked to somebody on the phone yesterday. Gosh, it was like they've been waiting 2 years for their interview for employment based
in Montreal.
In Montreal.
Oh, wow.
In family based, there's just a big backlog at the consular level. They reduce staff and increase scrutiny. So go figure.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So if you're going through the consulate, expect to wait longer than you have historically. Things have slowed down significantly. End results, we are seeing the same, but the process is just backlogged and taking longer.
And it's funny because I'm seeing things move more quickly at the foreign consulates, not the Canadian. So as opposed to Montreal, other consulates are moving more quickly with immigrant visa applications.
Yeah.
I think
Even
demand for them may be down.
e-visas.
I don't know. It's,
Even e-visas, like in
Yeah,
other countries, sail through so fast.
yeah, and yet Canada seems to be backlogged. I don't know if it's the reallocation of resources situation with the Department of State or
You still
what?
you still only have one consulate that does immigrant visas and one that does all the E's, right? So
Yeah.
that could be part of it. It's you're just funneling down and not enough
I
resources.
know if anybody from the Department of State is listening,
get some more help out
hire
there.
some more people in Montreal and Toronto.
I think every Canadian would appreciate it if they had a West Coast processing and an East Coast processing, right?
Yeah, it's always frustrating for people from Vancouver to have to fly to Montreal for their
The
interview.
West Coast, everybody has to travel over to the East.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Got to get your go to
Listen,
Toronto.
some
You
of
got
my
to get your immigrant visa, go to Montreal.
Some of my East Coasters aren't happy about having to travel from Newfoundland to Toronto or Montreal either.
It's a long hike.
Yeah.
It's a big country.
Yeah.
So consular processing cases, just prepare in advance. Make sure you take account for those processing times, and they fluctuate. And anytime we talk about processing times, keep in mind what we're saying right now could change tomorrow. It could speed up. It could slow down.
Yeah, that's
it's
the problem with
crazy
these
how it works.
podcasts.
Yes, it could be very outdated depending when you listen on it.
Yeah, if you listen to it next month, it could all change.
Yep. But this is what we've seen over the last several months. So this is the current trend. But yeah, keep that in mind. So traveling to the U.S., whether you have to go through the consulate or through an airport or through the border, prepare your documents. Make sure you have everything in order. Make sure you're fully honest. You disclose your history, and you're aware of how that might impact you. But
snowbirds, come visit. Come to your properties here in the United States. There's nothing stopping you at the border. There's nothing changed with the way you're going to be scrutinized. Similarly, people coming on non-immigrant visas, you want to apply for your TN, your L1. This is just as good a time as any to do that.
Yep. No reason to wait. All right. Now, we're going to switch to in-state processing. So if you're inside the United States, instead of consular processing through Montreal or Toronto, you are processing through U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. And we have seen a change with USCIS as well. I think the most significant change is if you're filing for any benefit for a green card in the United States, you're going to get an interview. Under Biden, I think it was like 3 years. I never even went to USCIS. It was crazy with COVID and Biden. They just waived every dang interview. Yeah. The only time you'd go to an interview was if it was for citizenship. Outside of that, you weren't getting an interview.
Right.
And even under the previous Trump administration, they waived interviews if it was employment-based. You wouldn't get those very often if you were being sponsored for a green card.
Yeah, because what are they really asking about?
Are you working there? That's right.
I mean, yeah.
I just prepped a client for an employment-based interview because the change, everyone is getting an interview. If you're filing for a green card in the U.S., expect an interview. If we haven't had a single one waived, whether it's employment or family under the current administration changes. So expect that in-person interview and prepare for it. And that's you'll show up to the interview. It's an employment-based interview. And the clients ask, well, what should I expect? And my advice is, well, bring your documents and tell the truth and answer their questions, but it should be very routine. And then you show up and the USC officer says, I don't know why you're here. I just have to do this interview. So
because presumably the interview is to identify fraud, right?
Yeah.
So I guess maybe they're just making sure they look like their photo. Because with business, it's all documents.
Yep, exactly.
What kind of representations would you make in person that would...
Hopefully you're confirming everything about your job, right?
Yeah, and I guess the security side of the 485, right?
And you can do they can do that.
I know they do the check, right?
Anyway, so it's just an added hoop you got to jump through. Now you should take it seriously because it is a government interview.
Absolutely.
I'm not discounting that. So make sure you are honest. You have all your documents in order. But the point is we've gone from a climate where cases, and here's the funny thing, cases were taking longer and the interviews were waived. But they weren't
doing interviews.
But now they're doing interviews and we're seeing them process quicker.
Yeah.
Go figure.
I don't know. It's hard to explain to people when they're like, wait, so they added a process and they're doing it faster.
Yes.
What?
So we're seeing these adjustment-based cases under my career since I've done these process faster than I've ever seen them. Mm-hmm. And they're requiring everybody to have an interview.
But do you think that's because of like a decrease in the amount of people applying?
I mean, we haven't seen a decrease in our practice, have we?
I mean, there's been, I think, a slight downturn in those types of cases.
I don't know. Maybe you think so. You're attributing to a chilling effect under the current administration,
like,
and less
is that,
people in the applicant pool. So
could that be
therefore
the reason?
Could be.
Or they're just putting everybody in immigration court now, so nobody has to go through the normal channels. That could be it too, right? Everybody's just getting a notice to appear, and then
You do have a big chunk that are going before a judge. That's
right?
for sure. I don't know what the answer is, but it's faster.
All right.
It is.
I'll take it. I'm happy to say that to my clients. It's moving more quickly.
And again, we're going to do our disclaimer. So the people are listening. What we share as far as processing time is anecdotal. It can change tomorrow. Every case is unique.
Yeah, it's case specific too.
And
it's field office specific.
Field
so it's
office.
geographically different around the country.
But I've seen some insanely quick processing.
Yeah,
I had this case. It was a Canadian lady came as a visitor, got married to a U.S. citizen, and applied. She had her interview notice in a month.
Yeah.
And then her green card after 2.
It took them longer to get us the documents to prepare the case than it did for the government to adjudicate the case.
Yes. And then every interview notice that I'm getting recently for these adjustment cases are somewhere in the 3 to 6 month time frame. It's insane.
Yeah, that's really short.
So doesn't mean yours is going to take that long. It could take 12 months. I say that, and yours could take
could take 3 years. Because if you look online, every field office has adjudication timeline, so you can check online and see what your timeline is, what the processing time is, and usually it'll say 9 months, 10 months, 12 months. And then even though it says that, we'll still see a decision or an interview scheduled in 3 months.
Exactly.
But even if you didn't get scheduled in 3 months, you can't just say, oh, mine didn't get scheduled in the normal time, because your field office is normal is 12 months, right?
Correct. Yep. But you also got to keep in mind when they're listing those processing times, that's every case type that falls under that, right? So you have more complex cases that could be drawing out that processing time, and yours isn't that type of case, so yours will process quicker too, right?
It's just hard. It's a guessing game, really.
It is a guessing game. But I'll tell you right now, clients in this green card process think we're some sort of a wizard, and we'll have some magic spell.
We'll take it.
I'll tell you right now, we're not doing anything
for those
different.
fast cases. We'll take full responsibility for
it's
those.
all us. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. Clients are enjoying it. In adjustment status cases with USCIS are going smoothly, and the interviews aren't any different either. So if we go back to the adjudication and scrutiny, it's the same as they've always applied. Now, they are consistent with what you said about Department of State, though. Anytime there is any inkling of a criminal record or immigration violation, you better be prepared to explain that. You better have your court-related documents. You better have all the documents to explain that situation, because they will ask for it. Yeah. They're not going to overlook anything.
No.
And we've had clients who failed to disclose things, and then it came up, and they were asked to then provide court-related documents because they didn't think it was a big deal. Well, USCIS and the Department of State do. So if you have any history, whether it was as a child, whether it was expunged or sealed, they know about it. Yeah. You need to disclose it, and you should definitely talk to an attorney and determine how that might impact your immigration case.
For sure.
But it will come up in these interviews. So that level of scrutiny is the same at Department of State as well as USCIS. But otherwise, things are going quickly, and as long as you qualify, we're seeing very positive outcomes. So in the end, what we're seeing, if you're married to a U.S. citizen, a U.S. permanent resident, or you want to sponsor a family member, there's no reason you shouldn't do that. Now is as good a time as any to file those cases. So the current climate we're seeing is overall, I think, positive. I wouldn't discourage anybody from the process, whether working in the U.S., visiting the U.S., getting a green card, whatever it is, and we can definitely assist you with that. So, the trickle-down effect so far, increased scrutiny. I think is the end thing that I would come up with. Definitely there's increased scrutiny. So expect that. But other than that, the criteria remain the same. The results are positive, and in some cases we're seeing record processing times. So as good a time as any to come and visit the United States. Well, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully this conversation you found helpful, and if you have any friends, family, or acquaintances that you think would find this content helpful, please share it with them. If you haven't already, please give us a like and subscribe to our podcast for upcoming episodes as we continue to discuss immigration law as it applies to Canadians. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great day.